I'm Ben Meiselas, of course, joined by Karen Friedman Agnifolo from Legal AF. Let's talk about the closing arguments in the E Jean Carroll defamation trial against Donald Trump. Let's spend this video talking about the closing argument from E Jean Carroll's lawyer. Robert Kaplan delivered the closing. Donald Trump stormed out in the middle of the closing. He couldn't handle it when Robert Kaplan was talking about how Donald Trump simply doesn't respect the law, doesn't respect the verdict from the past jury, and that it's going to take a damages award and punitive damages award that makes him stop. And in a case that was about Donald Trump defaming a rape victim of him walking out during the closing argument by E Jean Carroll's lawyer, Robert Kaplan, seems like a just disastrous thing to do, but in line with his behavior that was kind of underlying this case. I'll get your take on that, Karen. Just some two high points I want to talk about too, which was the damages being requested by E Jean Carroll's lawyer, Robert Kaplan, at least $12 million to repair her client's reputation, at least $12 million to compensate for emotional harm, and then for punitive damages, E Jean Carroll's lawyer told the jury, look, it's going to take an unusual high punitive damages award to have any hope of stopping Donald Trump. That's the high level stuff. Why don't you get into some of the nooks and crannies here about what went down, Karen?
Well, first of all, Trump showed up late, right? He basically walks in late and then, as you said, walked out in the middle of the summation. And in federal court, the way it goes is the prosecutor or the plaintiff goes first, then the defense goes, and then the plaintiff or prosecutor gets to do a rebuttal. That's different than state court, where the defense goes first, and then there is a summation by the plaintiff or the prosecutor. So that's why Robbie Kaplan went first here, because they are in federal court. So Trump shows up late, and then there was arguing by Alina Habba about a slide that they wanted to use in their presentation, but it was not in evidence. And Alina Habba started challenging the judge, who said to her, "You are on the verge of spending time in lockup. Now sit down, Ms. Habba." And remember, this is coming after Alina Habba lied to the judge, saying she was exposed to COVID, and then shows up in New Hampshire that night. So he is the kind of judge who would address contemptuous behavior at the end of trials. So stay tuned and watch out for that, because I don't think this judge is done with Alina Habba's outbursts and the fact that she just doesn't listen to him. But then Robbie Kaplan started her summation, and she basically said, this is a case about Donald Trump not respecting the jury verdict last year, and that basically, do the rules that apply to me and you apply to Trump? Because not 24 hours after he received the jury verdict, where the jury found him to have sexually assaulted and defamed E Jean Carroll, he went on the CNN town hall, that famous or infamous town hall, and repeated it again right after the verdict. He literally, that's when Trump walked out, by the way, because he couldn't handle hearing the fact that that's the truth. And then Robbie Kaplan said, for the record, let the record reflect that Donald Trump walked out. Because that's the thing. And that shows you a great trial lawyer, because trials are heated, intense experiences. Sometimes you have raised voices, people stand, etc. None of that's ever captured in the cold record that's literally just words on the page. So a good trial lawyer has to you have to say out loud, let the record reflect whatever it is that you want reflected in the record. Let the record reflect that the witness is pointing to the defendant, or let the record reflect that the defendant pointed out. And you do that so that it is captured in the record for appeal. Anyway, she goes on with her closing, talking about how nobody's above the law. At one point, Boris Epstein walks in and stands in the back, and the judge told him to sit down. And he basically admonished him, and he said, the defense team has to sit down, but not like you were part of the defense team. So there was just a lot that went on there. And she said, Robbie Kaplan, in her summation during all of this commotion and chaos and disrespect for the court, Robbie Kaplan made, I think, a really powerful point when she said that Trump made his most reprehensible statement of all last Thursday when he wrote on Truth Social, "I've said it once and I'll say it again 1,000 times." And basically he then went and tore into E Jean Carroll again. He's going to keep doing it. And Robbie Kaplan said, unless the punitive damages amount is so punitive, PUN is the PUN for punishment. Basically, unless that punishment, those damages is a high enough number. And don't forget, he says he's a billionaire. He said his Mar-a-Lago is worth $1.5 billion, throwing all those statements back in his face. He won't stop and he won't change his behavior. And so you have to absolutely stop him from trying to blame E Jean Carroll and blame the victim, and himself say he's the victim. And I thought it was just a very powerful summation where she also threw in his face how he mistook his Marla Maples. He mistook E Jean Carroll for Marla Maples, saying, "Oh, she's not my type," but then said that this is the picture when I met her. They're in a picture together. And then he says, claims the photo was blurry. And then she shows the photo and says, "It's not blurry." I mean, it's just brilliant because Trump has a way of wanting to just say that the sky is red when everybody else knows it's blue. And it's sort of very gaslighting because he does it all the time, whether it's talking about the crowd on the ellipse when he was inaugurated, right? He talked about the biggest crowd ever. And then the camera zoomed out and showed the emptiness, right? He just lies. And so he's lying and trying to say that this photo's blurry. Well, it's not. And Roberta Kaplan just did a brilliant, masterful job at throwing every single thing back in his face. And also showing how she ended her summation basically saying that even walking out of this courtroom shows contempt for the court and for Carroll and proves that the rules don't apply to him and you need to punish him. And then she also threw in their face too that they don't know the law, that in the beginning the defense attorney Alina Habba said that there's a duty to mitigate, but the judge is going to charge you. There is no duty to mitigate. I mean, just really pointing out the lawlessness of the Trump team. So I thought it was a very powerful summation.
I love when Roberta Kaplan used Alina Habba's words against her as early on in the trial when Alina Habba said during the openings, this is what E Jean Carroll wanted the entire time. She wanted to be famous, and she was made famous by Donald Trump. She should be happy for all of this. She wasn't damaged at all. She's more famous than ever. And Roberta Kaplan, E Jean Carroll's lawyer, said, "Can you believe that was an argument that was made to you, that the victim of a sexual assault who continues to be tormented and defamed by her rapist, the lawyer saying that the victim should be happy about what happened and should be happy about the defamation because she got fame? Is that really what they're talking about?" So, I mean, that was an incredibly powerful moment for me. And one of the things that Roberta Kaplan said, and Adam Klasfeld in the courthouse took this down, quote, "Being infamous is different from being famous. Being known for being a liar and a whack job is different from being known as a beloved columnist." And Roberta Kaplan then showed lots of the messages that E Jean Carroll received, calling her some of the worst names imaginable over and over again. You and I, Karen, are going to talk in a little bit about Alina Habba's closing and what's gone on in that time. And what happened during Alina Habba's closing, where Alina Habba pulled out a stack of papers and started telling the jury, "You see all of this? This is me being attacked by people. These are people going after me, Alina Habba." And then there was an objection to that, which was sustained. But that was kind of Alina Habba's theatrics. And it got even worse than that. And you and I will just spend a whole video talking about Alina Habba's disastrous closing, Donald Trump then going on social media and posting over and over and over again during the closing right now about the judge, about about E Jean Carroll, about what was going on in the court today. And we'll keep everybody posted as this develops. But just to remind everybody, the jury's being asked $12 million in reputational damages, $12 million in emotional distress damages, and Roberta Kaplan telling the jury, set your punitive damages. You know, normally in these situations, like in the last trial, even Roberta Kaplan would probably say, 4 to 5 times to try to keep it in line with the kind of constitutional parameters of what the Supreme Court in New York State has basically allowed for punitive damages. But here, showing the fact that Donald Trump said that he was going to keep doing this thousands and thousands of times, kind of leaving with that and then telling the jury, look, he says he's going to do this 1,000 times to E Jean Carroll. You just need to set this punitive damages to an unusually high amount to make him stop what you just observed during this trial. Oh, and they also showed that CNN town hall where Roberta Kaplan said, hey, normally after you lose a trial, you stop. Not Donald Trump. He went on to CNN and then started mocking E Jean Carroll immediately thereafter. You need a verdict to make him stop because the first trial didn't make him stop. Karen, final word.
Yeah, I think we're going to see Roberta Kaplan make a record of the tweet or the truth or whatever it is that that Donald Trump posted during her summation. She's going to make a record that while even during the summation, to make sure that the jury, when they go back and deliberate, will have an opportunity to see this. She is going to make a record of this posting because I agree with you, the punitive damage is going to be very high, and she's going to want to protect the record and show that he is contemptuous, that he needs to be punished, and he's not going to stop. And in fact, I think she could use this to get an injunction, to ask the judge for a permanent injunction to require Donald Trump to stop doing this. He posted, we asked for one trial on the E Jean Carroll false accusation case, but the judge wouldn't give it to us. He made us have 2 trials on the same hoax. And then on the second trial, they were allowed to use whatever information they wanted from the first, but we weren't allowed to use anything. As an example, the depositions they're using on the second trial were taken in the first. He wouldn't allow us to use totally exonerating Anderson Cooper CNN interview on either trial, but none of it in the second. Our legal system is in shambles. This is another Biden-demanded witch hunt against his political opponent, funded and managed by radical left Democrats. The courts are totally stacked against me, have never been used against a political opponent like this. But in the end, we will win it all and make America great again. That is not going to go over well to Judge Lewis Kaplan, the things he's saying about Judge Lewis Kaplan, who's completely independent, who has a lifetime appointment, who's been on the bench for many years. He's a Clinton appointee, and he is not going to take to these accusations kindly when this is all over.
Couldn't agree more with you. Karen Friedman, Agnifolo. We're going to do our next video now on the closing by Alina Habba. And then I think we should also focus on another hit that we'll do together, or a duet on these kind of Trump statements and where we go from here. But for now, Ben Meiselas, Karen Friedman, Agnifolo signing off. Hit subscribe and check out the Legal AF audio podcast as well. Have a great day.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.